as soon as you are seated. If you're standing, you have the power to start this session by sitting down. Thanks, everybody. Please take a seat. We're in the afternoon of day one of Transforming Transportation 2026. Is there anyone who's using the C-Vent mobile app at the moment? Do you have it on your phone? Are you using it? Yes, a few people are using it. Let me tell you what some of the things that it can do. If you want interpretation, translation, you click on the session. So this session is safe, clean, and affordable mobility. You click on that session, you click on interpretation, and then you will get over 60 languages available for you to follow this session in. Also, if you have a look at the Pulse survey, it enables you to rate the session. How extraordinary is that? And leave a couple of words for feedback as well as to your appreciation or not of that session. So we continue in our Transforming Transportation Day by looking at three important elements of transportation systems: how safe they are, how clean they are, how affordable they are. We will then be followed by an award ceremony, looking at some of the extraordinary work that's being done by students and graduates in sustainable mobility, sustainable transport. And then we will end downstairs in the dining room for a networking reception. No notes, no speeches, no panels, just networking. Let me introduce to you who will be in Plenary 3. We have the Minister of Transport and Logistics for Mozambique, Minister Guan Matlombe. Please, Minister Matlombe, please take a seat. Becky Bavinger, Global Public Health Department, Bloomberg Philanthropies. We cannot do this conversation without you. Please come to the stage. Mohammed Mashani is the Secretary General for the UITP. It is so good to have you, Mohammed. Please join us. Becky, unless you're moderating, would you move one seat over? But you're very welcome to. Thank you. And then one more minister, Minister Chandra Gurung. He's the Minister of Infrastructure and Transport for Bhutan. Welcome, Minister. Thank you. So here is our vision, a vision. And I'm really interested to hear, panel, what your vision is as well. Looking at transport systems that prevent road traffic accidents, that reduce air pollution, and that are also incredibly affordable if you're going to work for essential services that are affordable. Three important aspects of transport systems. Is that possible to do all three of them in one transport system? I want to hear your vision just briefly, and then we're going to unpack how we do this. Minister Matlombe, that vision, those three aspects of transport systems, is it possible to have a transport system that does all three?
Thanks. First of all, I would like to say good afternoon and thanks for World Bank for giving us this opportunity just to share, and special to participate in this important forum. Well, it's possible to do three and more, but let them try maybe just clarify, because we're considering transport as a system, not only has buses, train. If you look at it as a system, it means that as I think the morning it was shared during different sections. This system must also bring involvement electronic ticketing. They also need to look for social groups who are talking about elders, young students, all these things. Only with one system you can also bring, you can design and bring it. To make it more cleaner, it means that also, as you mentioned, more clean, it means that when we talk about affordability for transport, it means that we need to look for the special groups that are not protected. If there's no system, it will be difficult to cover all this group, like we have in different countries, including my country, Mozambique, where some of those groups, as the system is not basically well integrated, it's difficult to cover this special group that need special attention from the government.
Sure. Okay, so this is just a starting idea. I'm looking at the vision, like what is possible. I'm just thinking, Becky, because Bloomberg Philanthropies are so well known for championing, supporting road safety. But we're asking more here. We're asking for the transport system to do more, although saving lives is so critical. What does that vision look like? Is there a transport system that you've been to where they've done all three right here?
Thank you, Femi.
Keep talking and the microphone will come alive.
Okay, thanks, Femi. So I also want to say thank you to the World Bank and World Resources Institute for having us. And I think I'm really excited about this panel because they put safe first. So Bloomberg Philanthropies invests in road safety through our public health program. So I'm going to say that because I do think it's possible to have this transport utopia that you're mentioning that has safe, clean, and affordable. But I do think there's going to be trade-offs. And coming from public health, the emphasis should remain on safe because the costs of those road crashes are so high that it's actually not affordable anyway. So we're talking about investments in things like public transportation, in facilities for pedestrians and bicyclists and active mobility. Yes, those are investments, that's money, but the flip side is all the health costs and the GDP loss from the road crashes. So I think it's possible, but we just have to be a little bit more realistic about the trade-offs that we're discussing.
I love your candor in that, but road safety is more important than the others. Lives are more important. You're very candid. Mohammed, you have been doing what you've been doing so long. You have an interesting perspective, almost now a revolutionary in terms of how you think about transport systems. So safe, clean, affordable. Where is that? Where is that transport system? Keep talking and the mic will come alive.
But doesn't talk, it won't.
Patience.
So it's the definition of public transport, actually. Yeah. These are attributes of public transport: safe, clean, and affordable. Of course, a good public transport system. It's a transport system which is integrated, which is, putting people at the center, make it easier to access, easier to understand, because sometimes you go to a city, you don't understand how to use public transport. So here it means it's easy to understand. It's safe for everyone, not only for men, I would say, for everyone, vulnerable users, for women, for anyone who could want to travel, and also it's integrated, which is important. And not just when we say public transport, it's not just about mass transit. It's also about on-demand transport, about bike sharing, about car sharing, carpooling, and so on. And if we succeed to integrate between all of them, at the end, people don't dream to have a car at all, because they can go from door to door, combining the different modes together, and making it easy and safe to move.
Minister Gurung, I heard the description, a transport utopia. So what is that? What is the vision for an inclusive transport system that does all of the three things that we see right here? It's safe, it's clean, it's affordable, from your perspective in Bhutan.
Thank you very much for your question. Before I go into the question, I would like to bring warm wishes and greetings from my king and people of Bhutan. Before I actually go into the question, just to set the context, maybe when I say 130,000 cars, you might say, oh, too small. When I say 700,000 people, so I'm just setting the context so that everyone in the audience understands what it is. And also, secondly, I would like to thank my colleagues here in the panel that thanks to World Bank and WRI for bringing us together and letting us meet the experts, the NGOs, the investors, everyone together. So that's a great opportunity to be here. Well, like you said, I personally believe it's possible, safe, clean, and affordable. Now, since you asked me about Bhutan, personally, I'm driving it. I'm driving it, and personally, I have a firm belief that we can do it. And just as an information to you, World Bank team is working on a lot of things to help Bhutan to how to have safe, clean, affordable mobility. And the team colleagues came to me and said that no, we'll have to halve the fatality by half it SDG goals. And I straight away said no. I said vision zero. Yeah. So that's the kind of vision we have, and I have a belief. And by the way, I'm a politician, so. See,
that's okay. You can still stay.
Yeah. See,
we're very inclusive at TT.
So the perspective I'm putting is road safety do not get the agenda of a politician usually, because we only want to build roads, drinking water, farm roads, only the physical infrastructure where the voters see it. Right? So this is where I thought every life matters. Thank you.
All right, so that's the vision. Let's be very practical here. Minister Motlambe, in Mozambique, if you're developing your transport systems, how do you make them both affordable but also not pollute at the same time? Does that mean you can only get certain kinds of transport, or do you compromise sometimes?
Well, the challenge of many cities is to see how we can reduce the private vehicles. And I have learned it in Bogota years ago, the mayor. On that time, I was also a city council. When he designed the Transmillennium, he was trying to explain the approach, his vision. He was saying that, well, cities are designed for people, not for cars. So it means that we need to give a priority for pedestrian. We need to look for mass transport system that is affordable to make sure that the people can also use it instead of using their private vehicle. So this is our vision. Now we are designing with support from World Bank, bus rapid transport system, BRT, that has been developed basically in different countries, including Africa, that we expect a lot that it will also contribute just to improve the urbanization of the metropolitan area, basically, because it's not only about bus, not all about transport, it's about the quality of life of people, because I'm sure that, well, with safe, clean, and affordable transport, people can leave their private vehicle and start to use public transport. So this is the approach. That's why in some cities, including Mozambique also, we have been introducing basically on-street parking to make sure that we can also charge to basically see how we can encourage people to use the private vehicle, to use mass transport, and then to reduce air pollution, because using mass transport, it will help us to reduce basically a vehicle on streets. And then moving, in our case in Mozambique, as a transition industry, we're using CNG buses while we're moving for AV vehicles. So this is our approach. But we know that it's not only about buying or supplying or putting more buses. It's about the ecosystem that need to be looked at, as my colleague also mentioned before.
The bulk of our conversation panel is going to be how. How do we do this? So, Becky, if I talk to you about investments, money, what is needed in order to reduce the number of road traffic accidents globally? How do you do that? Because I know certainly with Bloomberg Philanthropies, they have a global view on this. They're looking at the world and with a vision and practically knowing how it is done. You are the experts on this.
Well, I think we're surrounded by the experts.
True.
So as Minister Chandra said, the global goal is to reduce road fatalities by 50% by 2030. This is our second attempt. We're in the second decade of action. We did not meet it the first time. We saw a 5% reduction globally. So kind of a big miss, but we can make it this time. We at Bloomberg Philanthropies invest in national policy change. But in terms of implementation, where we can see real sort of results, it's at a city level. And we work on cities because Mike Bloomberg, being our founder, was a 3-term mayor of New York City and feels, I think rightly so, that mayors can implement change a bit faster than national governments. Now we have 2 ministers here, so I hope they can disprove me there. But we work at the city level, and we're very small peanuts in terms of funding. I mean, we're a private philanthropy. We're not a MDB. We're not a government. So we don't fund capital construction, but we can fund technical support, small investments that can really unlock government funds, or those MDB funds to invest in the capital construction. I don't want to say this in terms of bribing, but one thing that helps is political will. So we're not going to pay for a mayor to do something, but giving the mayor and his or her team the support they need to talk about those kinds of changes we need, like comprehensive speed management, a motorcycle policy that actually works, investments in public transportation, which aren't always savory with the public, but really have impact in terms of reducing fatalities and injuries and making your city cleaner. You know, the air pollution benefits, people are moving into active mobility options like walking and biking, so many benefits there. Those kinds of solutions are often resisted at first by the public until you can start to show them this transport utopia that we're talking about. And so by supporting those teams in the cities that are doing such great work, and we've heard from cities like Bogota, Buenos Aires, another one that's making huge changes, Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, by showing the public that these things are actually working, here's the data, then we start to build that public demand, and we get a virtuous cycle of more investments in those kinds of solutions.
Mohammed, you're looking so thoughtful. Unleash the thoughts.
I was dreaming. No, I fully agree with what you said, and I was thinking about that the most important, I think, is governance, is how to organize mobility, how to organize public transport, who decides what, how to distribute the responsibility between the national government and the local one, and sometimes you have very efficient operators or very efficient vehicles, but they are efficient in the operation, but they don't attract enough people because the organization of mobility in the city is not done properly, because they don't have dedicated lanes for the buses, because the people, they can park wherever they want, and then it prevents buses to progress well. So it's important that we have this governance very well defined, and especially having a public transport authority, PTA. We see that the most performant cities, they have a public transport authority, and better if this authority covers other mobility modes and not just public transport, but at least having this public transport authority that could decide the attributes of the service. They could decide about the kind of modes, the frequency of the service, how to the stops, etc., etc. So, and then they will decide also to how it will be operated by private operators or public operator. It's very important, because technology, I mean, if we approach it just from a technical point of view, having electric buses or having digitalization or e-ticketing or things like that, it's always easy to do it. I mean, but what's important for me is having the right governance scheme and the right distribution of responsibilities between the different players.
Ministers, what I heard when Becky was talking about initial public resistance was some recognition there about having to persuade the public with data. Are you getting any resistance to your road safety agenda, Minister Garam?
Yes. When I tried to put 30 buses on the road, the taxi association came to me saying that you are taking away my business. Right? So even in transport, like anywhere else, there are competing interests. Right? So there are a lot of resistance. But I think you said that the governance, just to give a perspective to the audience, how we are driving is, I met in Bhutan, though it's a small fleet, it's the buses, the intercity buses are run by the private operators, not in my hand directly, but I met them 3 times so far. So one time, very intentionally, I called them 9 a.m. 1st January 2026. Yeah, I wanted to make a little symbolic, and I wanted also to feel the importance of the road safety, and somewhere like, the party late night and 1st January.
9 a.m.
9
That's
a.m.
aggressive phone calling.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the drive is important, right? So I think there are resistance, there are competing interests, but I think if there is political will to it, and we put our heads together, I think it's doable.
Can you finish that story of angry taxi drivers? Minister, I'll come to you in one minute. Let me just finish the story here. Angry taxi drivers coming to you because you're putting 30 buses on the road. Are the 30 buses on the road now?
Not yet. Not yet. In a few months' time, it will be on the road.
What did you say to the taxi drivers?
Oh, well, I said I was quite blunt. I mean, for all this, safe, clean, and affordable. Indeed, one time the buses, the city buses, one time were running up to 10 p.m., but we made it up to 12 p.m. now, 12 in the night.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And no, sometimes we'll have to take tough decisions.
Sure.
Yeah, we cannot please everyone. And for the good of the country, for the good of the city, I said, public transport is what every city around the world are doing. But other side of it, which we have not done yet, but we are planning to do it, the alcohol limit consumption, we are making stricter, right? So I think 0.08 to 0.05 something. So which is like, we are making the alcohol consumption limit very strict.
Right.
So I told the taxi drivers, don't worry, the buses will only take so much of your customers. But when we make the alcohol law stricter, there will be many people coming to taxis at late night because they cannot drive. So this is how I explained to them. Thank you.
Just one more thought before I go to Minister Matt Lombe. Do you take taxis in Bhutan right now? Do you take a taxi? Would you take a taxi?
Yeah,
so they're not mad with you?
No.
They will take you. No. Okay. Minister Matt Lombe, thank you for your patience. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. No, it's a process. I think the industry transition to become to move informal to formal, it's a quite challenge basically in many cities, including our cities, because it's not only about supplying them with bases. We need also to train them. So that's why I fully agree when you say this governance. It's very important to see how you can integrate them as a part of solution. Because we as a government, even with public companies, we cannot cover basically all cities. So we need them also as a feeders. But to become the transport also affordable, we need to make sure how we can integrate them. Okay, as a feeder to lower the cost. If they are not integrated, the transport will be expensive. And then, of course, once again, if we do not integrate them and we use the main corridors with BRT or MET, whatever, of course, we are going to exclude part of our society because all the people that are not integrated using the informal, they will pay more expensive and then we'll be reducing opportunities for them, even for health, school, for everything, including job. So we need to think in general how we can bring all the society and being integrated on those even because in terms of our politician, students, elders are all protected. So they have to pay basically 50% of the fare. So how to bring them onto our society? But we need to recognize that these private operators are also very important in terms of job creation, because if we do not consider them, it means that we need to reallocate them. They also have families that need to attend. So they are part of our system. So those are situations that, of course, we have different experience over the world, including Mozambique, but we are working to see how we can train them and how we can just become all these roads as a feeders. And the first challenge is, instead of dealing with each one, as Minister was basically explaining right now, is to work and see how to become them as a cooperative so that we can deal with one entity, so that gradually they can also consolidate their structure. In future, of course, there will be a company, but they need to start from somewhere. So it's up to us to see how we can make this induction to organize them. Because instead of just distributing each bus for each operator, maybe they are 20, but we can give them only 5 buses as a cooperative. They will share, it will be much easier for them to work and then also to serve. So this is our approach. That's what we're doing.
Mohammed, we've heard some policies that help towards reducing air pollution, help to make public transport more accessible. What are the policies that you've seen globally that you can say that works, that works, that works?
I think it's to have an approach, as I said earlier, it's integrated or more holistic approach, that we don't deal with each mode separately. Because, you know, the city is made of all those modes, cars and motorcycles and informal transport and let's say mass transit and so on. So it's trying to have a holistic approach. That's for me, and it's not an easy task, because we have what we heard now about the informal transport, how to integrate it and how to, you know, because it touches social elements which are very important. It's not just redefining the way vehicles move. There are people in those vehicles. There are families living from those services, you know. So it's the challenge is how to do that. So if you have a lot of money, like in Dubai, they did it easily. They bought the plates from all this informal transport, and they reorganized transport completely. They did that 20 years ago, and now they have metros and they have everything. But if you don't have money, you need to negotiate, and you need to avoid what happens in Johannesburg with people killing it. I mean, they even killed some of those who want to organize public transport there. So this people dimension is really very important. We need to take it into consideration. And also, and this is maybe to challenge a little bit the ministers, is sometimes I have the impression that the politicians, they are less daring to do things than what the population expects. You know, if you ask the same question to the population and you ask the same question to the ministers or the mayors, you will see that the mayors or ministers are much more conservative than the population. And people, they expect more, maybe to reorganize or to ban parking in somewhere, or to, you know, give priority to public transport in other streets. But mayors or ministers, they don't do it because, you know, it's a high risk for them. They're afraid to lose the next election, or to, you know, and I think we need, you mentioned the political will earlier. We need this daring, you know, behavior from policymakers to take the risk that you mentioned, Minister, in Bhutan, that you called them and you wanted, and you started negotiating with them. It's a high risk, a political risk, but it's important to do it, I think.
It's all impression. It's not true.
I love that the two mayors are looking at each other like this. It's like, you say something. No, you say something. All right, this is a safe space. This is only going out globally online. So in 60 languages, no one will know you honestly addressing what Mohammed brought up here, because I could see the eye contact going on, and I could only imagine the depth of the secrets that you are keeping and not telling us. Please, Minister, pick up the microphone. You tell us one secret, like one truth about the risk to you politically for doing the right thing.
Okay, now let me confess. My government won the election in 2023 and came to power in 2024. These groups of taxes, they came in numbers to support us throughout, because in Bhutan, there are less buses. I mean, there are more taxis than buses. So people hop in and hop out every time. And these taxi drivers were the messengers for my political party. And it's a huge risk.
So, should I push a little bit more? We're done.
I have a suggestion.
All right, I'm tempted.
It's to, did you announce before the elections that you are going to do that reform? No. So I think if you can't, because you don't want to take that risk. But there are cities who announced that they are going to make a reform, and mayors who were elected because people, they voted for that. No. And I think that's the political risk to take, is to dare to say, I am going to do that. And once you are elected, they cannot oppose anymore.
No, we are very discreet about that.
I like that. A politician saying we're so discreet. We didn't mention this before the election. Becky, go ahead.
I was going to add we work in 30 cities, and we've seen sort of both sides where I won't name names, but there would be a mayoral candidate who says, okay, these road safety people, they slowed down our roads. They reduced the speed limits. And we have data that show the transport times were not increased and deaths and injuries went down. So all good things. But the candidate would say, I'm going to speed up my city again. And they win and they speed up the city. They redact those speed limit reductions. The speed limits go back up, and we watch the data, we watch the injuries and the fatalities go back up. And then the next mayoral candidate comes in and says, okay, I'm going to run on a public health platform. So it can swing. But maybe I'm just an optimist, but I've seen over the past 10 years so much organizing, on the ground organizing of the silent majority of people who want to use their city streets. I'm talking about city streets, interstate, obviously different speeds and transport systems, who want to be able to get their kids to school safely, who don't want big trucks barreling down the road right in front of their school or in the front of their hospital or in front of their elderly parents' home in the residential areas. And it's incredible to see what they're doing. Things like platforms where they can vote on where to put a speed camera. And the city is shocked that people want speed cameras. There's a petition going on in Ecuador right now to get the speed cameras turned back on because the national government turned them off. So this is really encouraging. And I agree, the politicians need to take a little more risk and put yourself out there. And this is a good platform. Road safety is a winning platform.
Mr. Matlombe is barely applauding. So, of course, I have to come to you next. So here's the premise. The public is more radical than the politicians when it comes to improving their transport systems. Take us inside of that challenge for you as a politician. What is the risk?
Well, public transport is a social activity. It's like health, education. So all decision, usually we consider an unpopular decision that can affect negatively our position politically. So we need to fast before taking decision. Even because the matter is not about if it's correct or not correct. It's also about perception. We as a politician have to also to look for these kind of issues. We know that, well, this is a correct issue, but it's not the right time to do it. So we can do it. Even if we're under pressure. So sometimes we have to subsidize. Imagine right now, we have this basically this crisis, and then the price of fuel will increase. But we cannot just decide right now. If we increase the price of fuel, it means that the tariff will increase automatically. So the people are not in condition to afford this new cost. So politically, we have to evaluate in which time we have to take this kind of decision. Okay, so it's not all about, we need to just evaluate what the people are expecting and then how to deliver the result. But there are sensitive issues that even if are correct, politically, if are not, we cannot take. This is our job as a politician, unfortunately. We know what the people are expecting. At the end, they need to see the result, even because we know that there we have also informal operators that basically are involved on the process. So to control them, we need to subsidize, or sometimes we need to subsidize indirectly, just controlling the price of fuel, just not increase. And then, of course, at the end, if there's no system, I'm talking about capacity of government just to control, to subsidize people that really need, okay? If you don't have electronic ticketing, it will be difficult just to attend the specific needs for students, elders, all these people. So it means that we're going also to subsidize people that they don't need to be subsidized, because they have a condition, because the system is not already there. That's why I was saying initially that, well, when we talk about transport, we need also to look for a system that is safe, clean, affordable, but of course it's also integrated. This is most important. So those are sensitive. To build the system, it's a process. And we know the challenges that we have, because we have informal that need to be basically accompanied to become also formal. And then the challenge, of course, we know that it's not possible to move all them to formal. It will take time. But gradually, we need also to integrate basically on what they are doing, to make sure that they are not excluded in our process. But definitely, it's a very sensitive issue to national.
I hear that. I hear the massive challenge that you have, even though you are championing better transport systems. Mohammed, when Becky was talking about one mayor will reduce the speed limit, next mayor will put it up, you look so disappointed, as if you even knew the mayor concerned.
No, I don't know the mayor concerned. No. First, I'm not involved in politics, so it's easy for me to speak. So I admire the work they are doing and the risk they are taking, because I'm not taking any risk except sharing ideas that you may not agree with. So the question was about the mayor.
The question really was about the disappointment.
Yeah, no, of course, because that's exactly the one of the challenges we have. If there is no continuity in the policies, one mayor have reduced speed or put speed limits, and the other one is changing it. Which message are you sending to our citizens? So it's important to have this continuity, and we see cities, where even if they have changed mayors, they continue. Bogota, for example, Bogota, they had every 3 years you have a new mayor, but there is a continuity in the policy, and the BRT is expanding, and the metro is coming, and so on. That's what we need. We need mayors who think long term, but start implementing during their term, and even if it's not finished during the term, that they accept that it will be inaugurated by someone else. That's how, and we call them visionary mayors, these mayors, even if they are not there, but people, they will recognize what they have started, what they have initiated. That's what continuity in the policies is, of course, in good policies, because if you continue, not in the bad one, but it's important that we don't start from scratch each term.
I'm going to land on the affordable mobility part of our conversation via online. Deepan has been monitoring online. Hello. Can you give us that question that came online? Because it really addresses this affordable part of our conversation. Go ahead.
Sure. Hakeem Mohammed joining online asked this. Clean mobility often requires significant investment. How do we ensure that while affordability remains central, the transition to green transport does not widen the inequality between regions and communities?
Good question. Who wants to answer that with a good answer? Mohammed, go ahead.
I can try. But
Yeah.
I can try. No, it's depends how we define green mobility. Because if it is just, let's say, if it's just, converting existing buses into electric buses, for me, this is not green mobility. It's an anecdote. Sorry to say that. And sorry, it's a French word, maybe.
Say it again.
I mean, anyway,
No, say it, because I want to know this word.
I said anecdote,
An-
but
an
yeah, it's,
anecdote,
Yeah,
okay.
it means something which is not very. I mean, yeah, it's
Got it.
maybe the meaning in English is different. Sorry,
Yeah. No, it's good.
I'm wondering how they are translating in 60 languages.
We can
But-
check it on C event later.
But for if it's just punctual, okay, let's convert buses into electric buses. Green mobility is again it's a holistic approach. You cannot just convert in electric buses, but keep the cars, going wherever they want. No restriction on car traffic. It starts first with modal shift, and then if the new bus is electric, is better. So that's how we can succeed to introduce green mobility. And yes, it's an investment. It costs a lot of money to electrify buses. So that's why we need to be sure that if we electrify these buses, then we will attract more people on the buses. So it means that we have dedicated lanes, we have frequent service, we have the right tariff system, and so on. And also speaking about affordability, because you mentioned this, I think this is a very important issue. We need to make sure that everyone can afford public transport. Means that we should have a tariff system that will offer the possibility to have social fares also, in a way that those who cannot afford, they are supported financially, either by having a free fare for them only, not for everyone, only for those who needs this free fare. Because when we offer public transport for free, then there are some cities who tend to do that, and now there are elections currently in France, and a lot of candidates, they are promising free public transport, but the experience shows that free public transport doesn't attract more people. What they expect, for those who don't use public transport, if I offer you public transport for free, would you use it? No. So why? Because you expect quality, you expect punctuality, you expect safety, security, and so on. That's what people expect. They will not change their mode of transport because it's free. But those who cannot afford it, we need to support them, of course, by offering them, either free for them or reduced fares for those who cannot afford it.
Sure. Let's take a pause for your questions. The microphone, is in the aisle. If you've got a burning question, I suggest you stand up immediately and go to the microphone, because we have 15 minutes left in this session. Good afternoon, welcome.
Hi, everybody. Ryan Slaughter, GFX. Talked a lot about carrots that help with improving safe, clean, affordable mobility. Would love to hear a little bit about sticks that everybody is using as well.
Oh, sticks. So rather than enticing, punishing people for not doing the right thing. Can you see how enthusiastic I am about that? Next question.
Hi, I'm Christopher Zeman with the City of Alexandria, Virginia. So safety is really big, and also free transit is big in our city. So we respectfully disagree. We've had record ridership, but one of the things I'd really like to ask the ministers is, in addition to external opposition to safety and clean energy, can you talk a little bit about how you overcome the internal opposition from engineers or from people that exist because of the status quo?
Thank you. Next question.
Daniel Cano from WRI Colombia. We discussed a lot about political will and how to listen to the people as politicians when you're in power. And my question is, how can we balance this very loud but many times a small community of drivers, which a lot of the times are the easiest way to stop safe and clean and affordable mobility?
Thank you. Hello.
Hello, Michael Replogel, founder of ITDP and former New York City Deputy Transport Commissioner. How can we get a better aggregation of small, safe, clean, and affordable mobility projects. They're often small scale. How can we bundle those more effectively into much bigger tranches in order to move large amounts of capital to finance them and to finance the requisite complementary institutional capacity building to operate and sustain these over time? Talking about things like bike sharing systems, which we've taken to scale in New York City. We'll have 40,000 shared bikes financed by the private sector with a lot of public support. Why can't we replicate that model in many more places around the world?
Thank you. Hello.
Hello, my name is Madalena Pruna. I'm working for the Department of Climate here at IFC. I have a question for Minister João Matlombe. So for Mozambique, I understand that the country is generating electricity from renewable resources in maybe 80%. If I'm not wrong, please correct me. So I'm curious how Mozambique is taking advantage of this opportunity of maybe switching to electric mobility, and how are you getting ready for that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Minister Matlombe, you start.
Thanks. Thanks for the questions. Well, Mozambique, as you mentioned, we're basically a hub of energy in our region, now supplying main countries, landlocked countries, including South Africa, Zimbabwe, Malawi, and Zambia. We're supplying them with electricity. But of course, we still have challenges also in Mozambique, because you know that we are not covering basically all village districts. Districts basically are already covered, but in terms of population, we still need just to expand electricity in our country. That's why for transition, we're using CNG, because we are also one of the producers, one of the biggest producers for gas in Mozambique. So we're investing a lot on basically on CNG, just to lower the operational cost, because the cost of CNG is 50% cheaper than diesel. So it becomes the fare a little bit reasonable. So it will help us at least control. This is our strategy. That's what we are doing right now. We think for short and medium term, it works basically even just to reduce the air pollution. We are considering basically also CNG as a green, as a clean energy. It also increases basically to improve the quality of life, especially in urban areas. So it still works as a solution in many countries, including Europe. They are still using also CNG as a part of the industry transition to green mobility. That's what we're using just to maximize the potential that we have right now.
Okay, thank you. Becky, that question about, we've heard about ways to entice people using a carrot, but the stick,
Yes.
Does the stick work better?
So unfortunately, or fortunately, what we've seen in our work with cities is that if you're not enforcing your laws, they don't get followed very well. So when it comes to things like speeding or drinking and driving, et cetera. So we can run, we have data to back this up, but you can run media campaigns, you can have an educated populace, you can have very clearly defined speed limits all over the city. But if you're not also enforcing and issuing the financial citations for people going above the speed limit, there's way too many speeders and speeding related crashes and injuries and fatalities. And we see as soon as enforcement campaigns begin, and including on motorcycles and powered two-wheelers, we see speeds come down. We see the injuries and crashes from speeding come down as well. It's very difficult. And of course, I heard someone else talking about that smaller but very loud majority of drivers that will resist those kinds of things. But the political will is so key here. It has to be done to protect the general public and the general good over the rights of a few small people. My soapbox here is that I liken speeding to secondhand smoking. Nobody has a right to speed unless you're on a private road and you're going just by yourself, but you're a citizen of a group here. And when you're over speeding, excessively speeding, you're putting yourself and those around you at risk. So the enforcement does really work.
Mohammed, can you answer that question that Daniel posed about a smaller community of drivers? Do you remember the question?
No, I don't remember, sorry.
Daniel, Daniel, where are you? Run to the microphone again. From Colombia.
Yeah.
We do a retake on that question. Go ahead, Daniel. Thank
Okay,
you.
so the question is, how can we manage the political power that sometimes have a very small community of drivers that sometimes can be against safe, clean, and affordable?
Yeah, thank you for repeating the question. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Daniel.
You know, it's about what we have also said earlier about this political risk, because for me, you know, there are some mayors, what they say we should protect drivers because drivers are electors. It's like those who are using public transport, they are not electors, or those walking, they are not electors, you know. And this is exactly what we should fight, I would say, is taking the risk to say to this group of drivers, okay, you can talk, you can shout, you can do whatever you want, but coming back to what you said, is the public good, is the public interest, the general interest, and not the interest of the few. So you need to take that risk, otherwise it will never work, you know. So it's important, and of course it doesn't mean that we don't have a dialogue with those drivers or associations representing the drivers. It's important also to have I would say, to educate, you know, people, and to talk to them and to understand why. Maybe there is what is behind this behavior, what is exactly the problem, and try to understand. But at the end, we need to decide for the majority and for the interests of the city and the citizens in general.
One other stick, I guess it's kind of a stick, but it relates to what you're saying, is some policies related to things like congestion pricing, or we heard someone talking about, you know, the license where you switch off even odd numbers being able to drive, parking restrictions. These are all policies that you could say are kind of sticks to reduce private vehicles in your your CBDs or your downtown, very dense areas in your city, to allow for those safer, cleaner, more affordable mobility types, which are going to be your mass transit, your public transit, and your walking and your biking.
Minister Goran, we talked about pressure from the public, but there was a great question about internal opposition to you improving your transport system. Have you had that? How do you deal with internal opposition from within your government, from other politicians, from within the government?
Well, personally, I did not experience that, but I'm a minister for infrastructure and transport. And when I take over the charge of infrastructure and transport, safety is an integral part of it. And so there might be, I mean, at the cabinet level, I'm talking about, they might say, you know, don't do this, we might lose votes next time. But so far, thank God that we have been, and the larger wisdom has prevailed so far. But in the bureaucracy, sometimes, I'm not saying it happened with me, but they might want to maintain the status quo. Yeah, that could be there, but at least in my own.
But you haven't experienced it?
No, I haven't experienced that.
All right. This question is a great question for Michael, and hopefully I'm doing it justice. Mohammed, I'm going to give it to you. How do you better aggregate smaller transport projects so that there's capital for them and so that they're able to be sustainable?
I don't know.
Michael, do you know?
I think because the example mentioned is, you mentioned the example of bike sharing in London and so on. I think there is the size of the project is critical here, and because what London has done is also done in many other cities, but generally bigger cities. If we want to find a private investor, there is a critical size to attract the investor. You need that critical size. And so, yeah, I don't have the answer. I'm sorry.
But Michael, did you know the answer already, and were you just asking it just to see what the panel would say?
Yeah, kinda.
Oh, sit down, Michael.
Well, but it hasn't been done much. That's
Right.
the problem.
Okay.
you know.
What is the answer in a
Well,
sentence?
I think there are some places like Mexico
Yeah.
is one example, and I
Yeah.
think there are other countries that have formed with state national banks or new parastatal organizations financing facilities to create a special window and solicited grants, applications, or requests for proposals from city governments or consortia of stakeholders, public, private, for various projects, or made available grants to provincial government
Sure.
or to city governments in order to build capacity and also to aggregate a bunch of small projects, which are, bike paths and bike sharing systems and traffic safety improvements, bundle them into a whole thing with a capacity component, building component, perhaps with funding for non-governmental organizations that help support for consultants, to bring together the disparate communities and government entities that have to cooperate in order to make these things happen effectively at scale, and to develop networks locally, despite institutional and government fragmentation that often exists that hampers delivery of these things at scale in a metropolitan area or a smaller
Right,
city.
Michael, if you ever come up to the microphone again, we're going to be highly suspicious of you asking a question you could answer yourself.
Well, but if you would give me the opportunity to present the information, then I wouldn't have to ask.
Very
the leading
sneaky.
question.
Almost subtly done. Almost. All right. We are in the last 3 minutes of this session. Minister, yes, what were you trying to say?
No,
Please go ahead.
just to add that well. The same experience, I saw it in Brazil when they design and built Trans-Carioca and Trans-Millennium. They did the same. It basically a transition process. It was it basically involved a private sector, private investment, but they basically organized informal operator into formal, and they gave them a concession. So there was a huge investment involved, including, of course, the commitment from the government, municipal government at local level. So today it's an example. But if we go deep and look for how we deal with informal, we're discussing, because we have drivers, we have association, something that I think it's sometimes it's very important just to clarify. As a politician, I've been, as I mentioned, I've been working as a mayor. We have been discussing with the drivers. The drivers, most of them are not owners of vehicles. They are only basically drivers. It's difficult to deal with owners of vehicles because some of them are public staff, don't want to show their face. So I've been discussing and trying to provide solutions of people that at the end, they don't decide about the buses. Okay. So when they complain, we ask at least to meet or to organize into association. We're organizing operators, the drivers, but the real operators sometimes are not there. That's why many times we fail, because we are dealing with drivers that are not owners of the bus. And when we design solution for industry transition, we look for drivers. We basically try to train them and see how we can integrate them as feeders to be integrated in this into the system. The owner of the buses or these informal are not there. So we are discussing with people that at the end are not taking decisions. So those are things that we need also to bring on table. That's why it's all so sensitive to take some this political decision that we know, because the operators, the drivers, they don't have any responsibility with the vehicles.
I appreciate you being so candid in a conversation that is what is possible. And you talked about some of the political realities and told us some of the conversations that we're not always privy to. So Minister Matlombe, Minister Gurung, Becky, Mohammed, we could go on, but we have a networking reception and we're going to talk to you about safe, clean, affordable mobility over cocktails. How great is that? But for now, thank you. Thank you so much, panel. This session has not ended. Please be seated. Panel, take your seats. Thank you so much, panelists.
Thank you.
Our session continues. Thank you, panel. Looking so happy at the conversation that has ended. I need to make sure that you are appropriately equipped and ready for this next session. Can you please put your hands together multiple times and cheer? Let's try it. Oh, yes. We are ready for an award ceremony. This is so good. I get to watch it. The Lee Schipper Memorial Scholarship Award Ceremony is about to start. Standing by me is Ramon Munoz Raskin, who is your host for the award ceremony. I hand over to you, Ramon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Lee Schipper Scholarship Award ceremony. So today, Transforming Transportation, we've had very meaningful conversations about how the rapidly changing world is influenced by the transport sector. What can we do to shape our development paradigm? We heard from the perspective of those who are currently influencing, those that are making the decisions. But there are other interesting stakeholders in our world and perspectives to listen to. So for example, what is the new generation of professionals thinking? What are they going to be doing to change the world? So to follow the tradition, Transforming Transportation has a place to listen to the ideas of the new generations of movers and shakers, and to understand how they challenge conventional wisdom. We have done this session for 14 years now in honor of the legacy of Lee Schipper. Lee was a prolific academic, a member of our community. He influenced a generation of thinkers. And he was the co-founder of Embark, today the urban mobility program of the World Resources Institute, a Ross Center for Sustainable Cities, and a person who actually triggered and inspired this conference to happen in its inception. He was also my father-in-law and my mentor and my friend. So Lee was also a passionate supporter of young generations, entrepreneurial researchers, some of which are in this room now. And you know who you are. You've been influenced by Lee. He thrived empowering the young generations in shattering conventional assumptions. And in his memory, Holger, who will speak after the scholars, and I founded, with the support of other members of this community, this scholarship program supported selected young scholars with financial support and mentoring, and as important, with a chance to briefly present their ideas and their research in this conference. So now, thanking the World Bank and the World Resources Institute for letting us offer this session in this venue, let's get inspired by this year's new generation of transport ninjas. So we have presentation from two of them, 4 minutes each, and I'm going to time it. Let's have applause for our two scholars today. So we have Minke and Ignacio. I want to also acknowledge a third awardee who was not able to travel due to the travel disruptions in the world. And you know what I'm mentioning, her name is Sreja Banerjee. She's an assistant professor from the Indian Institute of Technology in Jodhpur, and she's researching gender responsive walkability in extreme temperatures. So we look forward to supporting her with the scholarship in other ways, and she's probably watching now as we speak. We will have a video of her presentation on the Lee Schipper Scholarship website. So with this, okay, let's go with our first scholar. This is Ignacio. So Ignacio Tizando Aitken from Chile, and he's an assistant professor of the Department of Geography and Planning of the University of Toronto. He will speak about measuring transport poverty. So an applause for Ignacio.
Thank you so much, Ramon, for the introduction. Good evening, everyone. I want to briefly show you my research today about measuring transport poverty in Chile with some comparisons to the Canadian context. When we think about transport problems from a personal perspective, we often imagine being stuck in traffic or missing a bus, or maybe waiting a couple of extra minutes for the next train. But for some people, these issues might go deeper. It could mean turning down a job offer, for example. It could be missing a medical appointment, or maybe being unable to visit friends or family because of transportation problems related to unreliable systems, the commute is too long, or maybe it's too expensive. In other words, transportation is way more than just like moving people from point A to point B. It's about how we shape cities and how transportation shapes who can participate in city life and who can't. Therefore, we refer to transportation poverty as the situation in which socioeconomic and mobility barriers limit people's ability to access daily opportunities. Measuring transport poverty requires a shift in perspective. Conventional data usually focus on observed travel behavior, where people go and how they get there. While useful, this approach usually overlook an important or invisible side of mobility. This includes, for example, barriers that people face, gaps in the system, suppressed trips, or maybe the direct links between daily mobility and well-being. In this project, we collected data in 2 Chilean cities, Santiago and Concepcion, using a household and interception survey, resulting in more than 1,500 responses in the country. Our survey was inspired by a national survey conducted by the Mobilizing Justice Partnership in Canada, which collected over 27,000 responses across 41 census metropolitan areas, providing a robust framework for our work in Chile. Given the richness of the data and also the limited time today, I would like to highlight 2 key findings that illustrate the transportation challenges that we observe in the Chilean context. First, we found evidence of suppressed travel, an issue that is often overlooked in transportation research and policy. In our survey, respondents reported missing more than 250 trips, with over 40% of them attributed entirely to transportation-related factors. In Concepcion, 17% of respondents reported skipping a trip they needed to make in the previous week, compared to 11% in Santiago. Many of these trips were essential for work, education, and healthcare, but they also included trips for groceries or maintaining social networks. This highlights how difficult and how mobility barriers can directly restrict access to daily opportunities in our cities. Second, we examine modal dissonance, this mismatch between the mode that transport and that people want to use and the one they actually use. Around half of our participants regularly use a mode that was not the first choice, with a wide range of factors preventing people from using more those preferred modes. For cars, for example, those included high costs, low convenience due to traffic or parking, and limited flexibility for those traveling as passengers. For public transit, respondents reported slow travel speeds, limited temporal and spatial coverage, and crowding. For active transportation, key barriers included slow speeds, unsafe conditions, the cost of e-bikes, and also limited service coverage for shared mobility systems. I would like to leave you with 2 key takeaways. The first one is current travel patterns often hide latent demand and unrealized travel. Suppressed trips and unmet aspirations reveal where our transportation systems are failing, or at least under-delivering from the user perspective. Addressing these failures is the only way to reduce social exclusion and achieve sustainable mobility by managing personal aspirations in order to produce desired outcomes for our society. Second, we can improve what we don't measure. Instead of choosing one approach instead of the other, traditional service should focus or evolve to capture barriers, to capture aspirations, and also the lived experiences of different population groups. We must also remain sensitive to context, as mobility challenges usually differ by different contexts. Next steps will be focused on further exploring the spatial and socio-demographic differences across different transportation poverty dimensions, and also a more comprehensive comparison across Chile and Canada. Finally, I would like to acknowledge our funders and also the collaborators that I had in Chile, Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile and Universidad de Concepción, for their excellent work and support in this project. Please feel free to reach out in case any of this resonates with you, and thank you for your attention.
So the second awardee is Mika Nipe. She's a PhD from Stellenbosch University in South Africa, and she will talk about whether it is worth shifting towards electrification of the minibus taxi industry. So over to you.
In Cape Town, South Africa, 7 in 10 public transport trips are made by one of these, a minibus taxi. Of the 24,000 used in Cape Town, 0% are electric vehicles. So this picture inspired me to develop a model to investigate electric paratransit in Cape Town, but also across the African continent. Good afternoon. My name is Minka Nipe. I'm a transport economist at HHO Consulting Engineers, former World Bank employee. And today I'm going to argue that the transition to electric paratransit is feasible in Cape Town for as-is operations before formalization. But first, what is the current operating model? Drivers typically start their day by transporting passengers to and from taxi ranks. They do this until about midday. The second half of their day entails the inverse of the morning, concluding the day by filling up with about $45 worth of diesel. Drivers use the fare revenue to pay for fuel, the door operator, the washer, and rent of about $60 per day to the vehicle owner. Vehicle owners pay for maintenance, insurance, and the vehicle installment. And where eligible, government pays a scrapping allowance to the vehicle owner, the only direct taxi subsidy. So I considered this as-is paratransit operating model, since formalization might take years to implement at scale, as we've heard from our plenary session, what happened in Joburg, for example. So I investigated operational and financial feasibility together with the willingness of the operators, the drivers, and the owners, as well as speaking with about 60 government officials about their willingness to assist with capital cost funding. I also looked at the environmental impact given the coal-dominated energy mix in Cape Town. The results are in. From the vehicle tracking data, we know now that the anticipated daily energy requirement in Cape Town for an electric minibus taxi is going to be about 70 to 90 kilowatt hour battery, which will bring about 150 to 200 kilometers realistically in range per day. And while drivers told me that they really prefer nighttime at-home charging using a portable cable to do so, illegal connections and the inability to absorb maximum power are stumbling blocks. So midday charging presents an alternative and second charging opportunity. In fact, the owners prefer charging at a hypothetical remote holding area instead of at the driver's home. With charging infrastructure temporarily funded by government with a buyback option for the owners once the vehicle has been paid off. Okay, so worst case scenario, this combination in yellow of AC charging type 2 at home plus midday yields operational feasibility of about 1 in every 2 minibus taxis. Now that's too much for our grid in Cape Town to handle. And not all routes yield financial feasibility. So looking then at the financial feasibility, under these assumptions listed, including, importantly, charging infrastructure temporarily funded by government, I estimate a 10% increase in profit for owners and drivers, equal to about $15,000 over 6 years. So I took these results to taxi owners and drivers. That's me in a sketchy area asking questions to drivers. And so drivers told me they appreciate the fuel saving that EVs bring, and consequently, they're actually willing to pay more vehicle rent to the vehicle owner for this EV. But some will resign due to uncertainty and the need for midday charging. Now, when it comes to owners, without the additional profit, owners will not transition. They're not environmentalists at all, it comes out to be. So they would need government support for the charging infrastructure, a reputable vehicle manufacturer, and engagement with current EV bus operators like Busigo, for example, in Nairobi. There appears to be willingness from at least local government to assist with the capital cost through conditional grants or other mechanisms like doubling the vehicle scrapping allowance as an example. And the motivation for government's involvement is to promote minibus taxi reform through a carrot approach, not a stick approach necessarily, and also then to improve the environmental impact of these 24,000 minibus taxis. So speaking of, what is the environmental impact? 44% less economic cost of environmental externalities per kilometer operated by an electric minibus taxi, despite the coal-dominated energy mix that we have. But Cape Town is improving its energy mix with lots of solar energy that they're incorporating. So ending off, is electric minibus taxis in Cape Town feasible with as-is operations pre-formalization? My answer is yes. 5% of the fleet, that comes out to about 1,200 electric minibus taxis, which is still quite a lot. And so this would probably bring about $800,000 worth of environmental savings. So if you want to know more or want me to apply my model to another city you have in mind, then please reach out to me during the networking session or virtually. Thank you to these stakeholders for their support.
With Ramonos, the co-founder of the scholarship, and you might have seen me here before on stage. So before we end, just also to launch the next call for application. So it's actually for people under 36, so pretty much for everyone who's in this room. If you don't feel that you applied to that, then also please also spread the word. And it's in fact, there is a partnership with the Volvo Research and Educational Foundation over the years. And we are now also really happy also to announce that we are also scaling up the scholarship. And we have a new partner. We have the Kühne Climate Center. And over there, Mark, please also stand up and give him a big round of applause. So, because thanks to the Kühne Climate Center, so we now also will have 5 scholarships. So, and please also talk to him when you want to hear more about also the Kühne Center. So we will have 5 scholarships, 2 specific also for Africa, and we'll also have 2 also particular on freight. And the programmers will include, as always, a grant of $12,500, a mentorship program, the opportunity to access Kühne's Climate Center activities, as well as REREF, and also the opportunity here also to speak. And so big thanks also to the World Bank, as well as to the World Resources Institute, also giving us this next generation the opportunity also to speak here. And I think that's pretty much it. So thanks again also for for joining us in this session and hope to see you next year again. But first, also, let's have some drinks. And please also talk to our scholars and let's have a final round of applause also for them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Congratulations, scholars. And now we conclude our day one of Transforming Transportation by going down one flight of stairs to the main dining room for the network reception until 7 p.m. Enjoy and hope to see you there. Thank you. Good afternoon.